The sky over Harlem wasn't just gray. It looked sick, heavy, like something wounded. Rain had been falling for 3 straight days. Not gentle rain, but a hard, punishing downpour that turned the gutters along 125th Street into fast-moving streams of black water and trash. People were already calling it the storm of the decade. A nor'easter that refused to move, sitting over the city like a sentence being carried out. The wind didn't blow, it howled. It shook old window frames and ripped umbrellas from the hands of anyone brave enough to step outside. Weather like that made New York feel fragile, smaller than it ever should. But inside the penthouse at Lenox Terrace, the pressure felt worse than the storm itself. The air was thick, heavy, charged, with tension that made every breath feel slow. The smell of stale coffee and expensive cigars lingered, mixed with something else, fear. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson stood at the window, staring out at the drowning streets below. His charcoal suit was pressed perfectly, tie centered with exact precision. To anyone else, he looked ready for a business meeting, but his hands were locked behind his back, knuckles pale from how tightly they were clenched. He wasn't watching the rain. He was staring at his reflection in the dark glass, and behind it, the reflection of his wife. Mae Johnson sat at the kitchen table. She hadn't moved in hours. Her posture, usually graceful and composed, looked fragile now, like something carefully held together that could fall apart with one touch. Her hands wrapped around a cup of tea long gone cold. Her eyes were fixed on the telephone mounted on the wall, as if it might explode. "Eat something," Bumpy said quietly, his voice low under the sound of rain. "I can't," she whispered, never looking up. "How can I eat when she's out there? Ellsworth. In this storm. She's 8 months. Along, the baby." Bumpy turned from the window. The pain in her voice struck deeper than anything else could. Gillies, his daughter. The one part of his life he had tried to keep untouched by the darkness around him. The one person he wanted protected from his world. She had been missing for 72 hours. It happened Tuesday. Right as the storm began, she'd walked to the market on 116th Street, milk and bread. 10 minutes, maybe less. She never made it back. No witnesses, no struggle. Just her umbrella found crushed in the gutter. For 3 days, Bumpy had turned Harlem upside down. Soldiers, runners, informants, everyone was searching. Debts were called in, doors kicked open. Threats made in alleyways while rain washed the streets clean. Nothing. It was like she had vanished. "We'll find her," Bumpy said, placing a hand on Mae's shoulder. It was meant to comfort, but the weight of it felt heavy. "Uni's out looking. Italians are checking their side too. Nobody takes a Johnson without permission. Unless they want trouble." "It's been 3 days, Mae said, her voice breaking. 3 days in this cold. If they hurt her, they didn't." His tone hardened instantly. "They want something. If they wanted her gone, we'd know. Silence means leverage." Right then, the phone rang. Sharp, violent, cutting. Through the room, Mae flinched. Bumpy didn't. He moved fast, crossing the kitchen in 2 strides and grabbing the receiver. He didn't speak at first, just breathed slowly into the line. Then, "Daddy." The voice was faint, shaking. Small. "Elise," he said softly. "I'm here, baby. Are you hurt?" "I'm cold," she sobbed. "So cold. The water. It's rising. I can't sit anymore. Let me talk to him." A man's voice cut in, rough movement. "Elise," cried out. Bumpy's grip tightened. The new voice that came on wasn't Italian. Not Harlem either. High-pitched. Nervous. Trying too hard. "You listening, old man?" "I'm listening. Cold. Flat. Empty. We got your girl," the man said. "And she's looking heavy, you know? Carrying all that weight. If you touch her, Bumpy said quietly. "There's nowhere you'll hide." "Shut up," the man snapped, voice cracking. "You don't threaten us. You want her back? You want the grandkid?" "Name the price." 50,000. Cash, small bills, duffel bag. Done. Where? Not so fast. You drop the money first. We check it. Then you get the location. I need proof she's safe. A jagged laugh came through the line. "She ain't safe." "You hear that, Rain Johnson?" Bumpy listened out. Behind the voice was a deep echo. "Russian water. We got her somewhere special." The man taunted. "A cage we made just for her in a basement." "See?" The voice on the phone continued, almost amused. "And this basement? Drainage ain't so good. Water's been coming in for hours. It's at her knees now. By midnight, it'll be at her neck." Bumpy glanced at his watch. 9 p.m. "You got 2 hours, Johnson," the man went on. "Phone booth, 10th Avenue and 22nd Street. 11 sharp. You leave the money and walk away. If we see cops, she drowns. If we see your people, she drowns." 1 minute late. 11, Bumpy cut in. "Don't be late," the man sneered. "She's already shivering." The line went dead. Bumpy held the receiver to his ear a moment longer, listening to the empty dial tone. Not breathing. Just thinking. 10th and 22ND. Chelsea. Dockside. Industrial blocks. He hung up slowly. May stood frozen. "Bumpy, is she's alive?" he said. "But we don't have time." He walked to the closet and pulled out his heavy trench coat. From the top shelf, he brought down a wooden box. Inside, a Colt Point .45 and 2 spare magazines. He checked the chamber. The metallic click echoed in the quiet kitchen before he slid the weapon into his shoulder holster. "What are you going to do?" May asked, standing now. "I'm paying them," Bumpy said, a lie delivered smoothly. "I'm bringing her home." He couldn't tell her about the water. About Elise standing in freezing filth, trapped and waiting. It would break her. "Bumpy," May said, voice steady again. "The Queen returning." She gripped his coat lapels. "You bring her home. And whoever did this, make sure they never come near this family again." Bumpy held her gaze. "I'm going to bury them, May." He turned and left. Down at the curb, the Lincoln Continental idled, exhaust pushing into the cold wind. Junie Bird sat behind the wheel, quiet, solid, built like a hydrant. A man who had seen everything and reacted to nothing. Bumpy slid into the passenger seat. "Who was it?" Junie asked before the door shut. "Amateurs," Bumpy said, lighting a cigar. The flame trembled slightly. "Jersey accents. Nervous. They want 50 grand. We paying?" "We're taking the money," Bumpy said, "but we're not making the drop." Junie glanced at him. "They got her in a basement," Bumpy continued. "Water's rising. They say she drowns by midnight. Drops at 11. Too late if we wait." Junie's hands tightened on the wheel. He'd known Elise since she was a child. "Where's the drop?" 10th and 22nd. Chelsea. "The meatpacking district," Junie muttered. "Warehouses. Slaughterhouses. Exactly. Abandoned spot. Bad drainage. Big echo. Concrete." Rain hammered the roof like gravel as Junie pulled into traffic. "We can't hit every building in 2 hours," he said. "We don't have to," Bumpy replied, smoke curling from his lips. "We just need a lead. Someone in Jersey dumb enough to try this. Where are we going?" The Blue Note. Junie looked over. "Slippery Pete's joint?" "Pete hears everything," Bumpy said. "If Jersey boys rented vans or asked about hideouts, Pete sold it to them. Drive fast. Waters rising. The ride was brutal. Flooded roads forced them off the FDR onto packed surface streets. Horns blared. Headlights bounced off wet asphalt. Juni drove with calculated aggression, mounting curbs, slipping through red lights, never slowing more than necessary. 20 minutes later, they pulled up outside the Blue Note, a basement jazz dive on 125th. The kind of place that stayed open even in a hurricane. Bumpy stepped out without waiting, rain instantly soaking his shoes. He descended the stairs with Uni right behind him. He kicked the door open. Music stopped. Conversations died. Every head turned. Slippery Pete stood behind the bar polishing a glass, thin, nervous, a man who survived by knowing too much, when he saw Bumpy in the doorway, dripping rainwater with cold fury in his eyes. The glass slipped from Pete's hand and shattered. Mr. Johnson, Pete stammered. Didn't expect you tonight, weather and all. Bumpy walked to the bar. The crowd parted quietly. He placed his hand flat on the counter. I'm looking for a van, he said softly. Jersey plates, 3 men. Been asking about empty warehouses downtown. Pete swallowed. I don't know nothing about that, Bumpy. I just pour drinks. Bumpy sighed, then glanced at Juni. Juni stepped forward, grabbed a whiskey bottle, and smashed it against the cash register. The crack exploded through the club. My daughter is missing, Pete, Bumpy said quietly. His voice dropped lower, heavier. She's pregnant. She's scared. And right now, she's wet. So I'm going to ask you one more time, who's been asking about warehouses? Pete's hand started shaking. I swear, Bumpy. I didn't know it was her. I didn't know who. Bumpy roared. The sound filled the club, rattling bottles behind the bar. The Genoa brothers. Pete shouted in panic. Vinny and his brothers, they came in Tuesday. Said they needed a place to stash a package. I told them about the old meat locker on 26th. By the river. That's all I did, I swear. The meat locker on 26th? Bumpy repeated slowly. The one that flooded in 58? Yeah, Pete cried. That's the one. Basement freezer. Soundproof. Nobody goes there. Bumpy stared at him, expression empty. You sent 3 rats to a condemned building with my daughter. I didn't know. Pete begged. Bumpy turned to Uni. Leave him. Uni hesitated. He wanted to hurt Pete badly. But the clock was louder than anger. We go, Bumpy said. They ran back up the stairs. 26th and 11th, Bumpy said as they jumped into the car. Old Dutchman slaughterhouse. I know. It, Uni replied, flooring the engine. The tires spun on wet pavement before gripping. The Lincoln fishtailed, then surged forward. That place is a death trap, Uni said. Right on the Hudson. If the river's rising, drive, Bumpy ordered. 10:15. P.M. The ride downtown blurred into rain and tension. Every red light felt personal. Every passing minute heavier than the last. Bumpy sat silent, staring through the window. He pictured. The water rising. Was it at her waist now? Was she freezing? Calling for him? He shut his eyes and forced calm into his breathing. Panic was useless. Panic was for victims. He needed to be ice. He needed to be the king. They reached the meatpacking district at 10:45. Deserted streets. Broken lamps. Darkness swallowing the cobblestones. The smell lingered even through the rain. Rusted metal. Rot, river salt. The Hudson had breached the edge of the street. Water swirled with debris. I can't get closer, Uni said, breaking. Water lapped. At the hubcaps. Ahead, the slaughterhouse loomed, a massive brick shell. Boarded windows, vines crawling the walls. We walk, Bumpy said. He stepped out. Freezing water rushed into his shoes. Soaking him to the knees, he didn't react. He grabbed the duffel bag just in case and checked his gun. Flashlights. Uni switched his on. The beam cut through rain, landing on rusted loading. Doors. They'll have a lookout, Uni whispered. Not in this weather, Bumpy said. They're inside, staying dry. Counting money they think they're getting. They moved along the wall, wind masking their steps. A steel side door hung loose on one hinge. Bumpy signaled silence. Then stepped inside the slaughterhouse. Interior was a cavern of shadows. Hook chains hung from the ceiling, swaying gently, clinking in the draft. The floor was slick, grease and water mixed together and beneath the wind. There was a sound, a steady rushing echo, water pouring below. Bumpy angled his flashlight. Down, muddy footprints fresh leading to a metal staircase. He mouthed. Down they moved quietly, despite his size. Bumpy walked with controlled grace, avoiding debris. A ghost in a charcoal suit at the stairwell. The sound grew louder, like a waterfall in concrete. Faint light leaked from beneath. A heavy freezer door below. They descended step by step. Voices carried upward. I'm telling you. Vinny, water's getting too high, one man said nervously. What if she drowns before he drops the cash? Shut up, Tony, another snapped. He's paying. You heard him. We get the money. We leave. Whatever happens after, who cares? Bumpy's eyes hardened. The cold rage inside him ignited at the bottom landing. He stood before the freezer door, thick steel, latch shut. He looked at JUNI E.3fingers.2.1. Bumpy kicked the door. The latch shattered. The heavy slab slammed inward with a thunderous crash. They stormed inside, guns raised. The room looked like a nightmare, once a cold storage chamber. Now flooding fast. Dark water swirled across tile floors, pouring from a cracked overhead pipe and bubbling through drains. Knee-deep already. In the center, on a raised platform barely above the waterline, sat a table. 3 men scrambled up from cards and beer bottles, reaching for weapons, but Bumpy didn't look at them. He looked past them. To the back wall, a rusted chain-link storage cage bolted at the lowest point of the room. Water inside it was waist deep. And there, gripping the wire with trembling blue fingers, stood Elise. Her dress soaked, hair clinging to her face, her pregnant belly half submerged. She was shaking so violently the cage rattled. She looked up, eyes wide, glassy with fear and cold. Daddy, she cried. The sound cut straight through Bumpy. Vinny Genoa recovered. First, thin face, cheap leather jacket, panic hiding behind fake toughness. He lunged not for his gun, but for the cage. Water splashed as he grabbed the bars beside Elise and yanked a switchblade from his belt. Shoving it through the mesh, the tip pressed tight against her neck. Freeze, he shouted, voice cracking. One step and I swear, I cut her right here. Bumpy stopped. His gun was already aimed at Vinny's head. Clean shot. Easy, but too risky. One twitch. One slip. And the blade could do damage he couldn't undo. JUNI froze to the left. Revolver trained on the other 2 brothers scrambling near the table. The room locked into silence, except for rushing water pouring from above, rising inch by inch. You made a mistake coming here, old man, Vinny spat, trying to sound brave. Failing. You were supposed to drop the money. I have it, Bumpy said calmly, lifting the duffel bag with his free hand. 50,000, right here. Kick it over, Vinny barked. Kick it over or the baby pays. Bumpy looked at Elise. She was crying without sound now, teeth chattering violently. The water was creeping higher around her. He looked back at Vinny, studying him, memorizing his face, his nervous eyes. The cheap gold chain on his neck. I'm putting the gun down, Bumpy said. Bumpy, no, Uni warned. Do it. Vinny screamed, pressing the knife harder. A thin line of blood appeared. quickly washed by dripping water. Slowly, carefully, Bumpy lowered the Colt. 4 or 5. He crouched and set it on the dry concrete near the doorway, then stood, palms open. There, he said. No guns, just money. Take it and walk away. You win. He tossed the bag. It splashed into the water near the table. That sound changed everything. Greed moved faster than fear. Tony and the third brother stared at the floating bag, eyes wide, guns lowering without thinking. That was more cash than they'd ever seen. Even Vinny hesitated, glancing at it. Go get it, he ordered. One of the brothers waded forward, reaching down. Bumpy watched the movement, the distraction, the ripples in the water. He leaned slightly. Uni, he whispered. Not a command, a signal. Time was gone. Negotiation was finished. Bumpy Johnson hadn't come to bargain. He came to end it. As the man's fingers closed around the canvas strap, everything moved at once. The freezer exploded with sound. Juni drew his snub-nosed revolver and fired. The shot cracked like thunder in the tight room. But it wasn't aimed to kill. The bullet struck a heavy meat cleaver lying on the table beside Vinny, blasting sparks and metal fragments into the air. Vinny flinched. Instinct, pure reflex, and that split second was all Bumpy needed. He surged forward through the knee-deep water with shocking speed, closing the distance in 2 powerful strides. He didn't reach for the knife. He grabbed the wrist. His hand clamped down like steel. Vinny screamed as the switchblade dropped into the dark water. Before he could react, Bumpy drove a brutal punch into his midsection. Short, controlled, devastating. Air left Vinny's lungs in a broken gasp. Bumpy seized his jacket collar and hurled him backward. Vinny crashed into the table, sending bottles and cards scattering across the water. Uni, Bumpy roared. I got M, Uni answered, stepping forward, revolver steady on the remaining brothers. Don't move, he warned coldly. You move, you're done. Tony and the youngest brother froze where they stood. They had been trying to pull Vinny back up, but the sight of Uni's revolver aimed steady at their chests stopped them cold. They were bullies, not fighters. Used to scaring shopkeepers, not standing in front of Harlem's most feared men. Bumpy didn't even look at them again. He trusted Uni to hold the room. His world was inside that cage. Elise, he whispered, voice breaking in a way few had ever heard. He grabbed the heavy padlock sealing the gate. Rusted, thick. He rattled it hard. It didn't budge. The keys. Bumpy barked. Where are the keys? Uni kicked Vinny sharply in the ribs. Keys, now? Vinny wheezed, clutching his chest, and pointed weakly to his belt loop. There. Take him, just don't shoot. Uni ripped the keyring free and tossed it. Bumpy caught it mid-air, hand shaking, not from fear, but from the surge of a father watching his child suffer. He found the right brass key and forced it into the lock. The mechanism groaned, fought the rust, then clicked. Bumpy tore the lock free and flung it aside, yanking the chain loose and swinging the cage open. He stepped inside. The water was deeper there, up to his waist, freezing, foul-smelling. Elise. She was curled on a soaked mattress, skin pale, lips blue, eyes barely focused. Daddy, she whimpered. Is it really you? I've got you, baby, he said, lifting her gently into his arms. She was heavy from the pregnancy and the soaked coat, but to him she felt weightless. He held her tight, trying to warm her with his own body heat. You're safe now. I've got you. He carried her out of the cage carefully, stepping through the rising water. Her face rested weakly against his shoulder, but she was breathing. Alive. He felt movement from her belly. The child still fighting too. Uni, Bumpy said, voice returning to that cold command. Yeah, boss. Take her to the car. Heater on high. Get her to St. Luke's. Don't stop for lights. Don't stop for cops. Just get her to a doctor." Uni looked at him. Then at the three brothers. Then back again. He knew that look. A sentence had already been passed. "What about you?" Uni asked quietly. "I've got business to finish," Bumpy replied. "Go. I'll find my way back." He handed Elise over. Uni holstered his weapon and took her carefully in his arms. She clung to him weakly, sobbing. "I'll be right behind you." "Baby girl," Bumpy murmured, brushing wet hair from her forehead. "Daddy just has to clean up a mess." Uni didn't argue. He turned and carried her up the stairs. The steel door slammed shut above. Silence filled the basement, broken only by rushing water pouring from the ceiling. It was louder now, higher. 2. Bumpy stood alone in the center of the room. He reached into his soaked coat and pulled out a silver cigar case, waterproof, pristine. He selected a cigar, clipped the end, and placed it between his lips, but didn't light it yet. He simply watched the three men, Vinny, Tony, and the youngest brother, slowly got to their feet. They looked at Bumpy, alone, unarmed, soot-soaked, and made a fatal calculation. 3 against 1. The gunman was gone. "You made a mistake, old man," Vinny sneered, wiping blood from his mouth. He pulled a second knife from his boot, small, serrated. "Sending your dog away? Now it's just you and us." The other two spread out, grabbing loose metal pipes from the debris. "We're taking the money anyway," Tony said, confidence. Creeping back. Bumpy didn't react. He struck a match against the dry doorframe and lit his cigar. The ember glowed red as he exhaled a slow stream of smoke. "You boys from Jersey, right?" he asked calmly. "What's it to you?" Vinny snapped, stepping closer. "Jersey's nice," Bumpy said. "Open air, space, not like Harlem. Here, we have rules." "Shut up," Vinny snarled, lunging forward. Bumpy moved instantly. He stepped into the attack. Not away. As the knife came forward, he sidestepped smoothly, catching Vinny's wrist mid-thrust and twisting it outward. Then his elbow drove straight into Vinny's face. A sharp crack echoed. The knife fell. Vinny stumbled back, clutching his shattered nose. Tony swung his pipe wildly. Bumpy ducked under the clumsy strike and drove a hard palm upward into Tony's chin. Tony's head snapped back violently, teeth slamming together as he dropped into the rising water. Gasping, the youngest brother turned and tried to run. Too late. He had just realized the truth. This wasn't an old man standing in front of him. This was something else entirely. But Bumpy was faster. He grabbed the back of the man's greasy hair and slammed his face into the steel doorframe of the cage. The impact dropped him instantly. Unconscious before he even hit the water. It had taken less than 10 seconds. Bumpy stood over them, breathing steady, calm. He adjusted his cufflinks. Vinny was on his knees now, clutching his shattered nose, blood slipping through his fingers. He looked up with pure terror, finally replacing the bravado. He understood now. This wasn't a businessman. This was Bumpy Johnson, the man who survived Alcatraz, who stood toe-to-toe with the legends. "Please," Vinny choked. "Take the money. We're leaving. You'll never see us again." Bumpy looked down at him, taking a slow drag from his cigar. "You're right, Vinny," he said quietly. "You won't come back." He grabbed Vinny by the collar and dragged him toward the open cage. "No, no." Vinny screamed, thrashing in the water. "What are you doing?" Bumpy shoved him inside. Vinny splashed hard against the back wall. Tony, still dazed on the floor, was next, lifted by belt and collar and tossed in like discarded cargo. Then Bumpy dragged the unconscious brother and dropped him onto the soaked mattress where Elise had been. Now all three were inside. The water kept rising. It was already at Vinny's belt. You like cages, Vinny? Bumpy asked calmly. You built this one, didn't you? Reinforced mesh, welded hinges, made sure nobody could get out. Let us out, Vinny screamed, gripping the bars. We'll drown. Yes, Bumpy said simply. You will. You can't do this, Tony sobbed. We're human beings. Bumpy's eyes flared, the ice finally cracking. Human beings? He roared, voice shaking the room. You grabbed a pregnant woman off the street, locked her in freezing water, threatened her life. His voice dropped again, colder than before. You're not men. You're rats. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the heavy rusted padlock, the same one that had held his daughter captive. He looped the chain through the cage door. Please, Bumpy. Vinny fell to his knees in the water. I'll work for you. Do anything. Just don't lock that door. I don't need you working for me, Bumpy said, sliding the shackle through. I need you gone. Click. The lock snapped shut. Final. Absolute. Bumpy tugged it once. Solid. Inside. The three men panicked, shaking the cage, screaming, kicking. It didn't move. The police, Vinny cried. Call the police. I want to turn myself in. Please. Bumpy gave a dry, humorless laugh. You want the police now? 10 minutes ago you were brave. Now you want the law. Yes. Tony begged. Call them. Just get us out. Bumpy shook his head slowly. This building isn't even on patrol routes. Condemned. Scheduled for demolition. Nobody comes here. He pointed upward where water still poured through cracked pipes. And the drainage? He added quietly, repeating Vinny's earlier words. Like you said, it ain't so good. He studied the rising water. I'd say you've got a few hours. Depends on the tide. Vinny's face drained of color as he looked down at the swirling water. You're going to kill us, he whispered. I'm not killing you, Bumpy said, turning toward the stairs. I'm leaving. The rain's doing the rest. Your choices did the rest. Wait, Vinny screamed. The key. You've got the key. Bumpy stopped at the steps and turned back. He held up the small brass key. It glinted faintly in the dim light. Hope lit their faces instantly. You want this? He asked. Yes. Throw it, please. Bumpy studied it. Then them. My daughter begged you to let her go, he said softly. Told you she was pregnant, and you laughed. His hand closed around the key. I'm not laughing. He reached to the wall switch beside the stairs. Goodbye, gentlemen. He flipped it. The single light bulb died. Darkness swallowed the basement. The screams that followed were raw, animal panic echoing through the chamber. Turn it back on. Don't leave us. Bumpy didn't answer. He walked up the stairs slowly, guided by the rail, their voices fading behind him under the roar of rising water. At the top, he pulled the heavy freezer door shut. Boom. The soundproof seal cut the screams. Instantly. Silence returned, only wind and rain filling the slaughterhouse. Bumpy walked through the dark warehouse and stepped back into the storm. Rain poured over him, washing his knuckles, soaking his coat again, but he didn't feel the cold. Now. Only a hollow warmth. The feeling of balance restored. He walked to the flooded street corner where storm water rushed into the drains and kept moving forward into the night. The floodwater at the corner churned hard, spinning trash and broken wood into a dark whirlpool that fed the city's drains. Bumpy opened his fist. The small brass key rested in his palm. He didn't throw it in anger. He simply turned his hand over. The key slipped free, hit the water with a faint sound that vanished under the storm, and was pulled instantly into the spinning drain, swallowed by the rushing current, gone into the dark tunnels beneath New York, never to return. Bumpy watched the water swirl, For a long second. Case closed? He murmured. Then he turned and began walking toward 14th Street. He needed a cab. It would take time in weather like this. But time was something he needed anyway. He couldn't go to the hospital yet. Not like this. He looked down at his suit, soaked, stained, ruined by the filth of the slaughterhouse. He smelled like violence. Like death. If he walked into St. Luke's now, May would see the part of him he had spent years hiding. So he went home first. An hour later, he reached Lenox Terrace. The apartment was quiet. May was already at the hospital. Bumpy went straight to the bathroom. He peeled off the deal's ruined suit, the expensive wool heavy with water and grime, and dropped it into the trash. He turned the shower on as hot as it would go and stepped under it. For 20 minutes he stood there, scrubbing his skin raw. Washing away the basement stench, washing away the memory of snapping bone beneath his grip. When he stepped out, he dried off and dressed again. Navy suit, crisp white shirt, silk tie. He faced the mirror. The man staring back looked the same as always, calm, controlled, respectable. A businessman, a community leader. But the eyes were different. Older. They had crossed a line and returned without hesitation. He took a cab to St. Luke's Hospital. The waiting floor was quiet. June stood outside room 304 like a statue guarding a door. When he saw Bumpy, he gave a small nod. She's safe. Bumpy entered. The room was warm, filled with the scent of antiseptic and fresh flowers. May sat beside the bed, holding Elise's hand. Elise was asleep. Pale, weak, but alive. The monitor beside her pulsed steadily. Beep. 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 May looked up, eyes red but smiling. With relief. The doctor says she'll be fine, she whispered. The baby, too. Strong heartbeat. She just needs rest. She was so cold, Ellsworth. Bumpy moved to the other side of the bed and gently touched his daughter's cheek. Warm. She's safe now, he said softly. Did you pay them? May asked. Did you give them the money? Bumpy looked at her. The woman he loved most. The woman he protected from the darkness inside him. Yes, he said smoothly. I gave them what they wanted. They took it and left. They won't be back. May nodded, believing him, or maybe choosing to believe him. Good, she said quietly. I hope they waste it and rot. Bumpy gave a faint, tired smile. I think they will, he said. I think they'll rot just fine. He pulled a chair beside the bed and took Elise's free hand in his. He closed his eyes, listening to the rain tapping gently against the hospital window. Miles away, beneath the meatpacking district, the water kept rising in the dark basement. Silent now, except for the flood, whether the screams had stopped or simply faded. No one would ever know. No one was there to hear them. Bumpy Johnson sat beside his daughter, father, husband, protector. And that night, for the first time in days, he slept with a quiet mind. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the story and want more Bumpy Johnson narratives, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.